From the dojo to the octagon, this is Budocast, your source for the latest in martial arts news, culture, and competition. From breaking fight results to evolving techniques, we cover it all. Let's get into it.
I am so ready for this one. We've got a lot to cover today.
We really do. I mean, think about it. In the movies, right? A spinning hook kick to the head wins the day in this flawless, spectacular fashion. The crowd cheers, the hero walks away without a scratch.
Right, not a single hair out of place.
Exactly. But in the cage this past weekend, gravity, friction, and just suffocating physical pressure reigns supreme. So today, we're finding out why the most boring moves in Hollywood are actually the deadliest weapons in reality.
Oh, absolutely.
And we're looking at how a brutal, grinding reality check is completely reshaping the global landscape of combat sports. So welcome to this special deep dive. We are diving into a massive stack of sources today to explore the ever-evolving landscape of martial arts.
And it really is a huge spectrum.
It is. We're charting a course from the beautifully choreographed fantasy of Outworld in Mortal Kombat II all the way down to the gritty, tactical, bloody realities of international competition.
You know, it's a spectrum we rarely analyze side by side like this. We usually compartmentalize our love for combat sports, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Like, the stylized films we consume on a Friday night feel entirely divorced from the tactical breakdowns we do of a Saturday night pay-per-view.
Right, totally different mindsets.
But the fantasy informs the desire, and the reality ultimately grounds that fantasy. They are, essentially, two sides of the exact same coin.
Okay, let's unpack this, starting with the Hollywood spectacle. The new Mortal Kombat II movie just dropped, and it is a massive expansion of the universe.
Massive.
Yeah, Black Belt magazine coverage outlines that we've got Outworld politics, Carl Urban stepping in as Johnny Cage, Kitana, Shao Kahn, and Baraka entering the fray.
Such a good lineup.
And they're standing right alongside returning stars like Hiroyuki Sanada as Scorpion, Joe Taslim as Sub-Zero, Max Huang as Kung Lao, and Ludi Lin as Liu Kang. But what really jumped out from the coverage wasn't just the nostalgia factor.
Right, it was the reaction from the community.
Yes, the specific reaction from real practicing martial artists, because, I mean, let's be honest, people who actually train are the absolute worst people to watch a martial arts movie with.
Oh, we are notorious for it. Every martial artist has ruined a movie night by pointing out, like, a dropped lead hand or a completely exposed chin.
Oh, 100%. He would never stand like that in a real fight.
Exactly. Or we see a physics-defying spin kick that would never generate actual kinetic power in real life, and we sit there with our arms folded, dissecting the impracticality of it all.
Guilty as charged.
Right. But with Mortal Kombat 2, there is a deliberate structural shift in the cinematography that the martial arts community is actually heavily praising.
Interesting. What kind of shift?
Well, for the better part of 2 decades, Western action cinema relied almost entirely on the quick-cut editing style. You know, you throw a punch, the camera cuts for the extension, cuts again for the impact.
And cuts a third time for the reaction. Yeah, the shaky cam effect.
Exactly. It manufactures frenetic energy, but it completely obscures the actual physical competence of the actors.
Right. It hides the fact that the lead actor might have only taken maybe 3 weeks of cardio kickboxing classes before filming.
Yeah. Just enough to learn the choreography.
But I have to push back a bit here. Isn't that quick-cut style necessary to make the violence feel chaotic and real? I mean, when you pull the camera back, doesn't it run the risk of looking like a highly rehearsed dance routine rather than a fight to the death?
That is the exact risk, yes.
Right.
And it is precisely why pulling the camera back requires genuinely elite performers.
Nice.
Because if the actors aren't legitimately skilled, a long, wide shot exposes all the gaps in their timing. They look like they're waiting for the next choreographed move.
Like they're anticipating the block?
Right. But when you cast someone like Joe Taslim, who's a former elite judoka, or Hiroki Sanada, who has decades of authentic martial arts experience, you don't need editing tricks to simulate speed, balance, or power.
Because they generate it themselves.
Exactly. Mortal Kombat 2 utilizes wider, longer static shots. They let a 4 or 5 strike combination play out in a single, unbroken take.
Wow.
The martial arts themselves, the kinetic chain of a kick, the shifting of weight, the pivot of the hips, become the visual attraction. You're watching real biomechanics at play.
It is so interesting you mentioned that kinetic chain, because reading the black belt piece genuinely triggered a massive wave of nostalgia for me. It heavily connected the movie's roots to the phenomenon of 90s and 2000s sport karate.
Oh man, the golden era.
If you competed in those days, hearing that iconic Mortal Kombat techno theme blasting over a blown-out PA system in a local high school gymnasium.
Oh, it was a whole vibe.
It was basically a Pavlovian bell for 90s kids about to attempt a 540 spin kick they had barely landed in practice.
It is the ultimate conditioning trigger. The bass drops, the adrenaline spikes, and suddenly an entire division of competitors in oversized regis thinks they can momentarily defy gravity.
So true.
But, that overlap between the franchise and real-world tournament culture isn't just a happy accident. It is structural.
What do you mean?
The early DNA of the Mortal Kombat franchise was built on the backs of actual tournament champions. People like Chris Casamassa, Keith Cook, and Robin Show were highly respected names on the traditional competitive circuit before they ever put on a cinematic ninja costume.
Right, they were the real deal.
They brought a layer of legitimate high-level credibility to what was, at its core, a fantastical video game adaptation.
Which makes the casting of Karl Urban as Johnny Cage so compelling. Because Johnny Cage is the quintessential, arrogant, vanity-obsessed Hollywood martial artist.
Sunglasses indoors, the whole thing.
Yeah, and the article speculated that Urban's Hollywood swagger perfectly mirrors the inherent showmanship. And frankly, the arrogance found in high-level, real-world competitive forms. I've been to those tournaments, and there's always that one guy in the extreme musical weapons division who walks onto the mat like he owns the building.
Oh, you have to have that arrogance in competitive forms. In the extreme divisions, executing a perfect 720-degree kick isn't enough on its own.
No, it's about the performance.
Right. You are being judged on presence. You have to demand the attention of the room. You have to project an almost insufferable level of vanity, blending undeniable athletic skill with pure theater.
And Karl Urban captures that perfectly.
It really does. It is a caricature, yes, but to anyone who has spent time on the sport karate circuit, it is a highly recognizable archetype.
So we have this cinematic fantasy of a martial arts tournament. The camera pulls back. The hero lands a flawless, visually stunning combination, the crowd cheers, and the good guy gets a literal flawless victory.
It's clean. It's aesthetically beautiful.
But if that kind of flashy, gravity-defying striking is the idealized fantasy of a tournament, what happens when we strip away the choreography, lock the cage door, and introduce the brutal laws of physics? Because the PFL event at the Sanford Pentagon in Sioux Falls this weekend was the exact opposite of a Hollywood fight scene.
It was a violent collision with reality. If Mortal Kombat is about the aesthetic beauty of violence, PFL Sioux Falls was a masterclass in the unglamorous, grinding, attritional nature of actual combat sports.
And nothing encapsulated that more than the main event. We had Logan Storley, a former interim Bellator lightweight world champion, coming in rank number 3, facing off against the 2024 PFL Europe welterweight champion, Florim Zendeli.
A huge stylistic clash.
Yeah. Storley had never lost at the Sanford Pentagon, and he kept that streak alive by completely dominating Zendeli, winning a unanimous decision where all 3 judges scored it 30-25.
Incredible.
Now, for anyone who hasn't stared at MMA scorecards before, getting a 30-25 on a 3-round fight isn't just a win. It is a massive statistical anomaly.
It is a total systemic shutdown of an opponent. In the 10-point must system, winning a round gets you 10 points, and the loser gets 9.
Right, the standard 10-9 round.
To earn a 10-8 round, you have to overwhelmingly dominate the action, usually with significant damage or absolute positional control for the vast majority of the 5 minutes.
So a 10-8 is rare.
Very rare.
Yeah.
So for all 3 judges to score at 30-25 across the board, it means Storley didn't just beat Zendeli, he removed Zendeli's agency in the fight completely.
That's a great way to put it.
He imposed his grappling to such an extreme degree that Zendeli spent 15 minutes merely surviving.
I want to dig into how he did that because it wasn't pretty. Storley used this suffocating elite wrestling pressure that made Zendeli so desperate he actually grabbed the cage twice to prevent being taken down.
Yeah, that was wild.
And referee Kevin McDonald didn't just warn him. He deducted 2 full points. I've seen a lot of referees hesitate to take points for cage grabs. Was McDonald right to pull the trigger so decisively?
He was absolutely right, and frankly, the sport needs to see more of it. A cage grab is a fight-altering foul.
Right.
When you are fighting a world-class wrestler like Logan Storley, your entire ecosystem, your stance, your footwork, your distance management is entirely built around defending the takedown.
You're constantly on edge.
Exactly. When a wrestler of that caliber finally breaches your defenses and gets his hands clasped around your hips or legs, sheer panic sets in. That cage grab is pure lizard brain instinct.
Just a desperate attempt to stay upright.
It is the physical manifestation of realizing you are about to be dragged into deep, suffocating water. By grabbing the fence, you are artificially altering the physics of the fight, using the cage to deny leverage that the wrestler rightfully earned.
So you're cheating the physics of the exchange.
Yes. McDonald taking the points immediately sends a message that you cannot use illegal leverage to compensate for a deficit in grappling skill.
We saw an almost identical narrative in the co-main event, which really cemented this theme of wrestling dominance. Dagestan's Gadzhi Rabadanov, the number 2 ranked lightweight and former champion, completely neutralized Alex Chizov.
It was relentless.
Rabadanov secured 7 takedowns in the 3-round fight. 7. But here is what I don't fully grasp. We just talked about how spinning kicks and striking are the main draws in movies, but here in the PFL, wrestling absolutely dictated the narrative. Is the reality of combat sports just less flawless victories and more grinding takedowns?
That is the exact trap of fighting an elite wrestler.
Yeah.
It seems obvious from the outside, like, why doesn't he just hit him? But inside the cage, the constant threat of the takedown completely short-circuits a striker's nervous system.
How so?
Think about the biomechanics of throwing a powerful strike. To throw a heavy cross or an uppercut, you have to plant your feet and commit your weight forward. To throw a roundhouse kick, you have to literally stand on one leg.
Right, you're compromising your balance.
Exactly. Every single significant offensive action a striker takes inherently compromises their base and their balance. Rabadanov isn't just diving blindly. He is reading Chizov's hips.
So he's waiting for the strike.
The moment Chizov commits his weight to throw, Rabadanov changes levels. The takedown threat acts as an invisible force field.
Yeah.
Chizov was hesitating because he knew that pulling the trigger on his offense meant exposing his hips to a level change.
So the striker is caught in this agonizing loop of indecision. They can't strike without getting taken down, and they can't defend the takedown if they are trying to strike.
Precisely. And when they do hit the mat, the exhaustion multiplies exponentially. We often talk about cardio in terms of lung capacity, but grappling cardio is about isometric muscular endurance.
What does that feel like for the guy on bottom?
Well, when Rabadanov gets on top, he isn't just laying there catching his breath. He is utilizing specific positional control systems, riding the legs, controlling the wrists, cross-facing. He is actively forcing Chizov to carry his body weight.
That sounds miserable.
If you've never grappled, imagine having a 155-pound sandbag strapped to your chest. And every time you try to bridge your hips or shrimp out to create space, the sandbag actively shifts its weight to crush your lungs.
Oh, wow.
That is what Rabadanov is doing. He drains Chizov's physical and mental reserves so completely that by the 3rd round, Chizov's arms are physically too flooded with lactic acid to throw a knockout punch.
If you've ever watched an MMA fight and wondered why the elite striker looks completely paralyzed against a wrestler, this Rabadanov fight is the textbook answer.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't all just grinding wrestling in Sioux Falls.
No, we had some wild moments.
Right. Usually when a giant heavyweight drops you, the fight is over. But Bailasteni survives, implements his own grappling to weather the storm, and then late in the 3rd round, he lands a flush right hook to win by TKO.
That is the terrifying volatility of the heavyweight division. The kinetic energy generated by men that size means one punch can completely alter the trajectory of a fight or an entire career.
Just a game of inches.
Bailasteni getting dropped but surviving is where heart and conditioning override pure physical talent. He took a page out of the wrestler's playbook to survive the early onslaught, tying Ferreira up to clear the cobwebs. Finding that opening in the 3rd round, when both men are exhausted, speaks to incredible composure.
Speaking of composure, Simeon Powell delivered an incredible performance against Emiliano Sordi. Sordi is a former PFL champion with over 20 more professional fights than Powell.
That is a massive chasm of experience.
You would expect the wily veteran to drown the young prospect, and Sordi definitely put him in some incredibly dangerous spots.
The experience gap is often the most insurmountable obstacle in MMA. A veteran like Sordi knows how to manage his breathing, how to steal microscopic moments of rest in the clinch, and how to bait a younger, eager fighter into overcommitting and making a fatal mistake.
Just veteran tricks.
Yeah, Powell had to navigate multiple highly volatile situations where a lesser fighter would have panicked.
But he stayed entirely composed. In round 3, he drops Sordi to the canvas and finishes him with a massive statement. TKO. It's exactly the kind of breakout performance you want to see from a prospect.
Absolutely.
We also had Magomedov pulling out a really tight split decision over Leandro Higo. At one point, Higo locked in a standing guillotine that looked incredibly deep. For anyone unfamiliar, a standing guillotine is terrifying because the defender's entire body weight is basically hanging from their own compressed windpipe.
It's agonizing.
Magomedov surviving that and pulling away in the third round was incredible. So Sioux Falls gave us the brutal domestic reality of the sport. But the PFL is not content with just dominating the domestic market. Their true ambition right now is vastly global, and they are putting massive resources into their upcoming expansion in the Middle East.
Before we dive deeper, shout out to our sponsors. First up, Elite Sports, leaders in premium fightwear for BJJ and MMA. Whether you're rolling or striking, they've got gear built to move with you. Check them out at elitesports.com. And if you're a school owner looking to optimize your dojo's performance, you need to check out Lotus by Open Black Belt. It's the ultimate management software for tracking ranks, attendance, and billing. They are currently offering a free trial to our listeners. Streamline your business so you can spend more time on the mats. Visit openblackbelt.com to start your trial today. You can find links for both in the show notes. And if you've got a story, news tip, or question, send it to us at Budocast.com.
So we've seen how PFL established their grinding, tactical brand of MMA in the American Midwest. But taking that product and trying to transplant it into an entirely different cultural and geographical landscape requires a completely different strategy. They are launching PFL MENA Middle East and North Africa at the King Abdullah Sports City Indoor Arena in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia on June 19th.
The strategic leap from South Dakota to Saudi Arabia is monumental, not just geographically, but in terms of sports economics.
How so?
Well, historically, when massive Western combat sports promotions went to the Middle East or Asia, they treated it like a glamorous vacation destination. They would pack a card with their biggest American or Brazilian stars, extract massive site fees and ticket revenue, and then fly home.
Right. It's exactly like a touring circus. The massive big top tent goes up, everyone in town buys popcorn and marvels at the spectacle, but then the train leaves town the next morning and the field is completely empty. Nothing permanent was built.
That is the perfect analogy. The touring circus model generates short-term revenue, but it doesn't create a self-sustaining ecosystem. What PFL is attempting in Jeddah is more akin to building a localized minor league baseball system.
Oh, investing in the roots.
They aren't just importing talent. They are actively funding and cultivating local, homegrown athletes. The Arab news coverage heavily highlights this by focusing on two specific fighters.
Let's talk about them.
We have the highly anticipated professional debut of Saudi Arabia's Hattan Alsaif, who went 4-0 as an amateur and is being billed as the region's breakout female MMA star. And we have the return of undefeated flyweight Malik Basahel, who is 3-0 as a pro, with every single win coming by stoppage before the third round.
See, it's one thing to import big fights for a spectacle, but building a homegrown star like Hattan Alsaif, who is being billed as the region's breakout female MMA star, what does this mean for the global talent pool moving forward?
It absolutely shifts the balance of power over the next decade. Historically, the pipeline for elite MMA talent has been extremely concentrated. It's dominated by American collegiate wrestlers, Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioners, and kickboxers from Western Europe.
The usual suspects.
Right. But when you build permanent, high-level infrastructure in a region like the Middle East, when you inject capital into better gyms, better local coaching, and provide a clear path to a massive global platform like PFL, you start drawing from an entirely new gene pool of martial arts traditions.
The reports say Alsaif's amateur run was incredibly high impact, featuring a very dynamic, evolving skill set. For someone who might not know what that looks like, what does a dynamic skill set actually entail in the context of a regional prospect?
A dynamic skill set means she isn't just a one-dimensional specialist. A lot of regional prospects come in as just a pure boxer or just a pure grappler.
They only have an A game.
Exactly. Alsaif has shown the ability to seamlessly blend ranges. She can fight from a southpaw or orthodox stance, mix high-level kicking combinations with defensive wrestling, and transition smoothly from striking to clinching without a hesitation step.
That's super impressive.
That fluidity is very rare for an amateur transitioning to pro. And then you look at Basahel. When a 24-year-old flyweight is finishing every single opponent before the third round, it shows a level of killer instinct and mechanical precision that you simply cannot teach.
You either have it or you don't.
You can teach technique, but you cannot teach the spatial awareness required to consistently find the finishing sequence in the chaos of a live fight.
And that kind of finishing ability is precisely what a promotion needs to build an emotionally invested regional fan base. Fans want excitement. They want to see their hometown representative not just eke out a decision, but decisively conquer their opponent. If Alsaif and Bossahel deliver high-impact finishes on June 19th, it solidifies PFL MENA as a legitimate powerhouse region for future world champions, not just an expansion project. But while the PFL is busy building brand new, modern MMA infrastructure in the Middle East, there is another organization operating in Southeast Asia that is doing the exact opposite.
So leaning into the history.
Yeah, they aren't building something new. They are actively preserving and showcasing one of the most ancient, punishing, and brutal striking traditions on the planet.
And this is where the tactical counter to the PFL's wrestling dominance truly lives. If you want to see the highest possible iteration of distance management, clinch nullification, and pure striking, you look at One Friday Fights 153 at the legendary Lumpini Stadium in Bangkok.
Lumpini Stadium is hallowed ground, May 8th, 2026. Let's look at the main event, because it was an absolute war of attrition. Warpan Lukjaparantom defeated French debutant Tom No Time Cass via decision.
What a fight.
I want to break down exactly what happened here, because Warpan initiated a methodical, agonizingly precise dismantling of Tom Cass's lead leg and body. If you've never been hit with a dedicated leg kick campaign, it's hard to fathom. It's not just a bruise, right? We aren't talking about a dead leg from a high school football practice.
Not even close. We need to look at the biomechanics of a Thai low kick to understand the sheer structural devastation it causes.
Break it down for us.
When an elite Thai fighter like Warpan throws a low kick, he is not snapping it from the knee like a karate kick. He is rotating his entire hip, pivoting on his late foot, and swinging his back leg like a baseball bat.
Using the whole body's momentum.
He is driving the densest part of his shin bone directly into the soft tissue, muscle fibers, and specifically the peroneal nerve of his opponent's thigh.
So it's literally attacking the nervous system.
Exactly. Every time that shin lands with a dull thud, it deadens the nerve and causes micro tears in the muscle. It compromises the opponent's ability to bounce on their toes, to pivot for a punch, or to generate any power from the ground up.
You just lose your foundation.
It is the anatomical equivalent of chopping down the load-bearing pillars of a building. Once the foundation goes, the entire structure collapses.
But Cass didn't collapse.
Yeah.
The guy is remarkably tough. He pushed back incredibly hard using a boxing-heavy approach. He was desperately trying to crash the distance, throw heavy combinations in the pocket, and tie Warpan up. He even had a massive adrenaline-fueled surge in the third round. But it just wasn't enough.
Cass showed tremendous heart, but heart cannot override elite distance management. Warpan's defense was built on microscopic footwork adjustments and razor-sharp counters,
Making him miss by just a hair.
Every time Cass tried to step in heavy to throw a punch, Warpan would slide just slightly off the center line, maybe an inch or two, and deliver a blistering roundhouse kick to Cass's exposed ribs. He forced Cass to pay a severe physical toll for every single inch of forward progress.
So frustrating for a striker.
It was a masterclass in spatial awareness, and it earned Warpan his 71st career victory.
71 wins. And he's only 23 years old. The sheer volume of ring experience these Thai fighters accumulate by their early 20s is staggering. But I really want to talk about the co-main event because it highlights a fascinating psychological aspect of combat sports.
Oh, this was a shocker.
Didwanklek Torfanfarm completely ruined the highly anticipated one debut of Cyber Sor Tienpo. And Cyber isn't just some guy off the street. He was the 2018 Rajadamnern Stadium Fighter of the Year. He came in with this massively decorated, legendary resume.
The pedigree was undeniable.
Cyber Sor Tiempo walking into one is like a highly decorated university professor walking into a ruthless tech startup. The credentials are unquestionable, everyone acknowledges the pedigree, but the environment is totally different, the pace is terrifying, and Denwang showed him absolute zero respect.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that lack of respect for past accolades is the defining characteristic of one championships events at Lumpini Stadium, especially with the 4-ounce MMA gloves they use for Muay Thai.
Those little gloves change everything.
The ring does not care about your resume. The 4-ounce gloves strip away your ability to hide behind traditional defensive guards. Legendary status means absolutely nothing once that bell rings. Only present moment execution matters.
Cyber looked okay in the opening minute, landing some nice left strikes, but Duenglik just poured on the aggression. He cracked him with a beautiful three-piece combination on the outside and then completely bullied the former fighter of the year in the clinch.
Just manhandle him.
He was literally throwing him down to the canvas repeatedly. Then, in the third round, Duenglik landed two massive right hands, with the second one landing flush on the chin. It was a dominant, statement-making performance that pushed Duenglik's record to 59-15.
It perfectly illustrates that in the highest echelons of striking, you are only as good as the adjustments you can make under fire. Cyber came in with the technical pedigree, but Duenglik came in with the disruption.
Chaos theory in action.
He forced Cyber into a chaotic, high-pressure fight where his technical superiority was completely nullified by sheer aggression, faster hands, and physical dominance in the clinch. When you are being violently thrown off balance in the clinch, your Rajadamnern Fighter of the Year trophy doesn't help you regain your footing.
Watching someone survive against incredible odds, whether it's Tom Cass fighting through a deadened leg to throw haymakers in the third round, or a decorated champion trying desperately to stay conscious while being bullied in the clinch, is the ultimate crucible of combat sports.
It's why we watch.
It's exactly what draws us in. We want to see what happens when human limits are breached. And that brings us perfectly to the absolute grueling attritional war that was the main event of the weekend back in the United States.
We are talking about surviving nightmares. UFC 328 in Newark, New Jersey. This was a fight that tested the absolute limits of human endurance and willpower.
Sean Strickland defeats Khamzat Chimaev via split decision to regain the UFC middleweight title. And in the co-main event, Joshua Van defeats Tatsuro Taira via a brutal fifth-round TKO.
We have to start with a deeply granular tactical breakdown of that five-round championship war between Strickland and Chimaev. Chimaev was heavily favored by the odds makers, and for the first 5 minutes of that fight, he demonstrated exactly why he is considered the boogeyman of the division.
The first round was genuinely terrifying. Chimaev did exactly what he always does. He exploded across the cage, closed the distance instantly, took Strickland to the mat, and just drowned him.
Like a tidal wave.
It looked like the crowd's chants of USA were going to be silenced very, very quickly. I genuinely thought it was over.
Chimaev's wrestling is unlike anything else in the division. It is explosive, overpowering, and relentlessly offensive. He doesn't just take you down to control you. He crashes into you like a freight train, destroys your base, and immediately hunts for chokes while raining down heavy ground and pound.
It's overwhelming.
For Strickland to survive that first round without taking fight-ending concussive damage or exposing his neck for a rear-naked choke was a massive tactical victory, even though he clearly lost the round on the scorecards.
But then round two happens, and the entire momentum of the fight shifts. Strickland somehow manages to thwart the takedown attempts. How does he do that? Because we saw in the PFL that once an elite wrestler gets a hold of you, you are basically doomed. What did Strickland do differently against an absolute monster like Chimaev?
This is where Sean Strickland's defensive grappling brilliance shines. Most fighters completely panic after being dominated in the first round by a grappler of Chimaev's caliber.
They just fall apart mentally.
They overcompensate, they lower their hands too far to defend the takedown, which leaves their chin exposed for a knockout punch. Or they back up constantly until they're trapped against the cage, which is exactly where a wrestler wants you.
Right.
Strickland did the opposite. He stayed incredibly disciplined. He kept his hips heavy, and he utilized his frames flawlessly.
For anyone who hasn't rolled on the mats, when you say Strickland uses frames, you mean he was creating rigid, bone-on-bone barriers with his forearms to keep Chimaev's weight off him, right?
Exactly right. Instead of trying to use sheer muscle to push Chimaev away, which exhausts your arms, Strickland waged his forearms against Chimaev's collarbones and biceps.
Using leverage instead of strength.
He fought fiercely for underhooks, which means swimming his arms under Chimaev's armpits to control his posture. By doing this, he denied Chimaev the leverage needed to complete the takedown entries. He actually ended up spending a significant portion of round two in top position, which completely flipped the psychological script of the fight.
And from round three onwards, despite suffering what looked like a severely broken nose, Strickland went to work with his striking. And his boxing style is just so strange to look at. He doesn't look like a fluid athlete.
The biomechanics of Sean Strickland's striking are fascinating because they look entirely unorthodox, yet they're incredibly effective for MMA. He fights from a very tall, upright stance.
Almost flat-footed.
He utilizes a variation of the Philly shell defense, parrying incoming strikes with his hands and rolling his shoulders, almost like old-school bare-knuckle boxer.
Yeah.
But his ultimate weapon is the jab. It is not just a measuring tool, it is a battering ram.
He used that jab to constantly, relentlessly disrupt Chimaev's rhythm. Every time Chimaev tried to gather his energy, plant his feet, and launch one of those explosive blitzes, Strickland would snap his head back with a stiff jab.
It is the ultimate neutralizing weapon. He kept this marching, zombie-like pace that forced Chimaev to fight moving backward.
And backing up changes everything.
And if we go back to our earlier discussion about wrestling mechanics, fighting off your back foot severely limits the explosive power of a takedown entry. You cannot shoot a powerful double-leg takedown if your weight is shifting backward.
Even though Chimaev showed incredible heart, and we have to give him credit, he stood and traded heavy blows for much of the fourth round, and even dug deep to secure a late takedown in the final minute of the fifth round. Strickland's defensive framing, clever movement, and relentless volume were just enough to convince two of the three judges to give him the nod.
A historic comeback performance.
Here's where it gets really interesting. In the co-main event, we saw an incredible, almost poetic parallel to the main event. Joshua Van also had to survive a genuinely fearsome, world-class grappling attack. He fought Tatsuro Taira, who is an absolute nightmare on the mat.
Taira is a submission machine.
But Van managed to drop Taira at the end of the second round with a thunderous right hand, survived the subsequent grappling exchanges in the middle rounds, and came roaring back to win by TKO just 1 minute and 32 seconds into the fifth and final round. How does a striker survive a grappler like Taira for that long?
The symmetry between the main and co-main events is striking, and it highlights a major evolution in the sport's meta. Surviving Taira requires immense composure during scrambles. Van didn't just accept being on the bottom.
He was always working.
He constantly fought the hands, breaking Taira's grips before Taira could lock in submissions. He used hip escapes to create tiny windows of space, constantly threatening to stand up, which forced Taira to focus on holding him down rather than advancing to a submission.
So making him work for every inch.
And most importantly, Van trusted his cardio. He knew that if he could drag Taira into the deep waters of the fourth and fifth rounds, the grappling fatigue would set in.
And it did. The finish in the fifth round was spectacular. It speaks to the absolute grueling attrition of modern MMA. Elite wrestling is a massive dominant advantage, but if you cannot finish the fight early, you have to be prepared for the absolute hell of rounds 4 and 5 against a striker who simply refuses to quit.
That's the reality of championship rounds.
Now, we have to talk about the aftermath of the main event. Strickland gets on the mic in the octagon for his post-fight speech, and it was classic, expletive-laden Sean Strickland. He addressed his fan base directly. I am quoting the reports here verbatim. "I want to tell you guys, my fans, I effing love you guys. I would not be where I am today without you guys, my Christian fans, my Muslim fans, my white fans, my black friends, my brown fans." He finished the speech by declaring, "We are all Americans, and this is the effing dream."
It was certainly a passionate speech.
Now, I want to state clearly and definitively to our listeners, we are simply relaying Strickland's exact words from the octagon as reported by the sporting press. We are neither endorsing nor criticizing the social or political sentiments expressed in that speech. Our goal is strictly to report the events of the broadcast with absolute impartiality.
Understood. Looking past the microphone and focusing solely on the athletic achievement, we really need to explore the psychological resilience required for a fighter to do what Sean Strickland just accomplished.
He lost the belt to Dricus du Plessis back in February 2025.
Losing a world championship is a uniquely devastating psychological blow. You reach the absolute pinnacle of your sport, the literal mountaintop. You achieve the dream you've worked towards since you were a teenager in a gym.
The ultimate validation.
And then in front of millions of people, you are violently knocked back down. Many fighters never recover from that specific trauma. They lose their aura of invincibility. They begin to second-guess their training camps, their coaches, and their own chins.
It has to be an incredibly isolating, lonely feeling. You go from being surrounded by cameras to sitting alone in a locker room.
Incredibly lonely. But Strickland rebuilt himself. To navigate back through the rankings, earn another title shot, and then step into the cage against a force of nature like Khamzat Chimaev, a fighter whom the odds makers heavily favored. A fighter who actively strikes fear into the entire middleweight division requires an ironclad, almost irrational mindset.
You have to believe in yourself when nobody else does.
Strickland had to survive the nightmare scenario of being dominated in round one. He had to fight through a broken nose, which severely restricts your oxygen intake and floods the back of your throat with blood. And he had to execute a high-volume, high-concentration game plan for 25 agonizing minutes.
He had to walk straight through the fire. He willed himself back to the championship.
It is a testament to his cardiovascular conditioning, yes. But more importantly, it is a testament to sheer, unadulterated willpower.
It is truly remarkable. We have covered a massive amount of ground today. We journeyed from the meticulously choreographed, wide-angle cinematic beauty of Outworld and Mortal Kombat II down into the grinding, punishing 30-25 wrestling clinics inside the PFL cages of South Dakota.
It's been a ride.
We analyzed the strategic, localized talent cultivation happening in Saudi Arabia with PFL MENA, marveling at the destructive, ancient biomechanics of Muay Thai under the legendary stadium lights in Bangkok, and finally witnessed the bloody, unbreakable resolve required to win a 5-round UFC championship war in New Jersey.
The full spectrum of combat sports.
Before we sign off, I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder or explore on your own. With movies like Mortal Kombat elevating the supernatural, highly stylized fantasy of fighting, and real-world warriors like Sean Strickland and Warapon showcasing the incredibly bloody, agonizing, and grueling reality of the sport, why are we as humans so endlessly, undeniably captivated by watching two people step into an arena to test their physical limits against one another? What is it about the fight that speaks so deeply to our shared human experience, transcending culture, language, and geography?
A question for the ages.
That's it for this episode of Budocast. Thanks for joining us as we break down the latest in martial arts. We'll be back soon with more news, stories, and insights. Until then, train hard, stay humble,